In today's video, we're going to be creating a chatbot that uses artificial intelligence provided by the OpenAI API, and it's going to look like this. So if we run the program, we're going to have a small prompt here that says you, and here we can type in something such as, how are you doing? And if we type on enter, it's going to make an API call and it's going to give us a response. What do you think about bananas? And you can make these prompts as complicated as you want, and the bot will always be able to understand and give you something back in context. I actually said it should pretend to be a skater dude, so at the end of each sentence it says yeah, and it does skater things, and let's say what are you up to? And just chilling and skating, because that's the model we provided it. As you can see, maybe here you'll have a quick glimpse. You will pretend to be a skater dude that ends every response with yeah. And then you give it an example of how it should react, and it will take care of the rest in the prompt. So I think it's a really cool project, and we can get started immediately by creating a new empty Python project in PyCharm, or you can use any code editor you want. I will be using Python 3.11 for this. And it's going to look like this. This is the intro screen to my new project. We don't need any of this, of course. It's just an empty main.py file for us to write our code. The first thing we're going to do to get this out of the way is open up the terminal, and we're going to type in pip install OpenAI, since they have their own package for handling all of this. And then we can close that terminal. And the very first thing we need to do is import OpenAI, and we need to provide it an API key. So I'm going to have a secret file called hidden, and to do this, we will just go into our folder, right click, new file, and we'll just call it hidden.txt. Now inside here, you need to put your API key. And we don't have an API key at the moment. So what you need to do is go to openai.com, create a profile so that you can actually use the AI. And I'm going to leave a link in the description box down below on where you have to go, because once you are in openai.com, you need to click on your account and you need to click on view API keys. And here you can create a new secret key. But once again, I'm going to leave this in the description box down below, so you can just tap on the link and you'll end up here if you have an account. Otherwise, you do need to sign up and generate your new secret key. Now, of course, you can't use my key, it's hidden. This is not the full key and will not work if you copy it. So you're going to have to generate your own to actually be able to use it. So right now what I did is replace that text in the hidden.txt file with my API key. Of course, you cannot see that, but I just did that off camera so we can continue with the project now that we have our API key. So we need to provide OpenAI with our API key. And to do that, we're going to type in with open hidden.txt as file, and we're going to type in OpenAI.API key, and that's going to equal the file.read. So this will read the one line that we have in hidden.txt and use that as the API key for OpenAI.API key. Now, as a security practice, it's not recommended that you store your API keys in a format such as a text file, but for the purpose of this video, we're going to keep it like that because it's nice and simple. And if this is your own project, I mean, you can easily just skip all of this and say OpenAI.API key and just paste it in directly here. You don't have to create that file. It was actually just mostly for my video, so I wouldn't give it away. But next we can create our first function, which gets an API response. So here we'll type in def get API response, and it's going to take a prompt of type string, and it's going to return to us either a string or none, depending on what we provided. Maybe there's going to be an error, and if there's an error, I want this to return none, but I want it to display an error. So I want it to be an optional type that it returns. Then the first thing in here we need to create is the text of type string and none, or I mean of type optional, and it's going to equal none initially because this can either end up being a string or it might also end up being none. Now, before we continue with this program, let's go back to OpenAI, because inside here they have this place which is a playground, or this section of their website that's considered a playground where you can play around with the capabilities of this AI before actually putting it in your code. And we're going to be using the Text DaVinci 003 model, and it has lots of presets. This is where you can learn how it works. You can see examples, Q&A, you have a chatbot down here. And if you tap on chat, it's going to give you an example on how it works. We can say something such as, hello again. And if you tap on submit, it's going to generate the next response. So at the beginning, it provided the prompt of what's going on. Then it gave some context, such as how it should respond and what it should do next. And then it actually was able to generate that for us. So if you have this open, you can just tap on view code and you can just copy this response down here and paste it in your project, and it should work right away. So it's pretty simple to use this API. I'm going to write it by hand because if you're watching this video, maybe it makes more sense to understand what each line does. Also, very briefly, I want to mention that if you hover over any of these, it will give you a small window telling you exactly what it does. So I'm not going to explain all of these in detail. That will be more of a personal project for you, but I will explain them very briefly. So here we're going to start off with a try block, and it's going to take a response, or we're going to create a response of type dictionary, and that's going to equal OpenAI completion.create, and here we're going to create the request, which gives us a response. So first we need to specify a model, and the model is going to be Text DaVinci 003. For the prompt, we're just going to insert the prompt. Then we have the temperature, which is a float, and I'm going to set that to 0.9. And the higher the temperature, the more random your bot is going to be. Then there's one called max tokens, and we're going to set that to 150 for now. So it's a rather short response it's going to give us. If we go back to the API, you can see you can play around with all of these, and 150 is pretty much the absolute minimum, and you can put that up to 4,000 and you'll get very long responses. But I'm going to leave this at 150 because tokens will eventually cost you money. So it's good to keep into account that you want to use less tokens in some scenarios. If you are new to OpenAI during the first 3 months, they're going to give you $18 of credits, which are plenty for playing around with this. So that's what we're using at the moment. I think I used only a few cents in the past few days testing this. So it's pretty nice that we have that for free. So we only want to use 150 tokens per response. Then we have top P, which is going to be 1, and that's actually a default value for that. And the documentation describes this as an alternative to the temperature. Then there is the frequency penalty, which we're going to provide the value of 0.4, and that reduces the verbatim line repetitiveness. Then we have a presence penalty, which will be 0.6. And this presence penalty determines how often the AI is going to talk about new subjects. If you have a very low presence penalty, it's probably going to repeat itself. So it's good to have it somewhere up there. And most importantly, we need to provide a stop. And this will be an array of these stops. So we have first a space and human, followed by a space and AI. So these are stop words, which means once it runs into these, it knows that it shouldn't generate any more responses. And again, writing this out by hand might be annoying, so you are encouraged to go to this playground and play around with the values here, so you can just view the code and copy it from here. And just to get rid of the error at the bottom, we're going to accept exception as E, and we're going to print error if there's an error, and E. It would be good to test that this response actually works, so we're going to print the response down here, and we're going to try to use this. I mean, we're not returning anything yet, so this will still be highlighted, but right below we can type in get API response, and we need to provide a prompt. And you will type in prompt is going to equal, and we will go back here and we will view the code. And as you can see, the initial prompt it provided in here is what we wrote inside this API. So I'm just going to copy that just for this example to see if it works. It's a very long string. The following is a conversation with an AI assistant. It's literally everything inside here on one single line with new lines as well. And we're just going to insert the prompts. Then we're going to tap on run. And it ended up giving us this JSON response, which is really good. As you can see, we have choices, and then we have all of this data here. And what we really care about is the AI section, where it says, I'm here to help you with whatever you need. What would you like to do today? That was the next line generated after we provided this prompt. I'm going to show you how we can make our own prompt so we don't have to copy and paste this, but this was just to see that everything was working. And if I'm not mistaken, I guess you didn't actually need this entire line. We can just delete it and we can say hello. And I think that would still work, but I'm not sure. And it still did work. So I said hello and it said, hi there, how can I help you? So you didn't have to copy all of that. You could literally just insert hello if you want. What's important is that we know it's giving us a response. So everything's working pretty nicely. But inside our get API response, we don't really care about the JSON. We just want to get the response of the AI. So we're not going to print that, and we're going to replace that line of code with a variable called choices of type dictionary, which is going to equal response.get, and we want to get choices at the index of 0. And to explain what that is, these are the choices from the JSON. As you can see, the first element in this dictionary or in this JSON is choices. So we need to access that part of it. And then we need to access the first element inside choices at the index of 0, which is this dictionary here. And right below that, we can say text is equal to choices.get. And what we want to get is the text. We want to be able to retrieve this section of the JSON. So that's what we're doing with these two lines of code. At the very bottom, outside of the except block, we're going to return the text. So this is the full function that we have in get API response. It just tries to make this request. If anything goes wrong, it prints an error and returns none. So now we can try this again, but this time we need to print the get API response, because once we insert something into it, it's going to give us a response back. So we can say hello there. And if we run this, we should get some text back saying, how are you today? I hope you're doing well. It's nice to meet you. So we got the section we wanted, although we do have 2 empty lines, which we will take care of in just a moment, but everything's working quite nicely. And I'm going to type in if name is equal to main and just put that inside there, just for now, so we have a nice entry point and it looks quite clean. But next we're going to create a function that adds each message that we create to an array, and it also is going to add each message that the bot creates to that array, so we kind of have a message history. So we're going to create this function called update list, and it's going to take a message of type string, whether that comes from the bot or from us. And we also want to have the prompt list that we're going to pass in, and this is going to be a list of type string. Then all it's going to do is append the message to that list. So it's a very simple function, and we can move on to the next function. Because with that list, we need to be able to create a prompt. Since we're going to have an array of messages or a list of messages, we're going to want to consolidate that into a single string. And that's where this function is going to come into play. So def create prompt, and it's going to take a message of type string, followed by the prompt list, which is a list of type string, and it's going to return to us a string. Then we're going to have a processed message. So I'm going to call this p message of type string, and that's going to equal a formatted string with a new line followed by human, and we need to insert the message. And it's very important we provide the new line, the /n, because that's how the bot is currently designed. Each time we have a new line followed by human or a new line followed by the bot, this gives the bot further context on how to proceed with answering the questions. But with that, we can update the list with the processed message and the prompt list. Then the prompt itself of type string is going to equal quotation marks followed by join, and we want to join everything inside the prompt list. Then we're going to return the prompt. Now the final function we need to create has to do with actually giving us the response from the bot in a clean format. So here we'll type in def get bot response, and it's going to still take a message of type string and the prompt list of type list of strings. So I'm just going to copy and paste that inside, and it's going to return to us a string. Now first we want to get the prompt. So the prompt of type string is going to equal create prompt. It's going to take a message and it's going to take the prompt list. Then the bot response of type string is going to equal get API response followed by the prompt. So now we're slowly chaining this logic, but it's also important that we check that the bot response is not none. So if there is a bot response, that means we can use update list and we can insert the bot response to our prompt list. So we're inserting elements into our history, into our chat history. And we also need to get the position of the AI response. So here we'll create a variable called position of type integer, and that's going to equal bot response dot find. And what we want to find is \n AI : and a space. We're finding this because we only want to print what comes after that. So the bot response is going to equal the bot response at the index of position plus 5 : so everything beyond this, because right now when it finds this is going to be at the index of 0. So we'll find this here and we want to go plus 5 so that everything after that is going to be printed nicely. Else we're going to print the bot response, which is going to equal, or not print, but we're going to assign this value to the bot response that says something went wrong, because we got none back, which means it could be a poor API call or just didn't have the correct response we were looking for. And we're going to return the bot response no matter what happens. So we will always have a functioning chatbot. Now we just need to put this together. So we need to create our main function. We have all the functionality that's required. We just need to glue it together. So def main, that's not main, def main. And here we're going to create the prompt list. This famous prompt list that we've been inserting everywhere, we're finally going to create that, which will be of list of type string. And here we need to provide the training data. I'm going to copy and paste in what I had from earlier. What I wrote initially was, you will pretend to be a skater dude that ends every response with yeah. And then you need to give some examples such as human, what time is it, AI, it is 12 yeah. So some very basic context, and you can change this with whatever prompt you want. You can say you will pretend to be a fighter pilot dude that ends every response with yeah, or you can say you can pretend to be a sheep, or you can be a potato. You can tell it to do whatever it has to do, and you can make it quite descriptive and then give it some examples after, and it will do its best to follow that prompt. But that was my basic prompt example that I was going to use for this, so that's how I'm going to keep it. And all we have to do is type in while true, the user input, which is us, of type string, is going to equal input. And we just need to say you, because that's the user who's typing inside. And we need to get the response now. So response is going to equal get bot response. And it will take the user input as the message and the prompt list as the prompt list. Then all we have to do is print the formatted string of bot followed by response. And instead of using this silly code down here, we can just pass in main. And that's all we need to do to create this chatbot. Now, if we tap on run, we're going to get the U prompt and we can say, hey there, how are you, mate? And we're going to wait for the bot to respond. And it will say, hey there, I'm doing great, yeah? And it's working perfectly fine. One thing you can do to understand better what the prompt list is just print the prompt list after each iteration on while true. So if we run main again and say, yep, you'll see when it generates a response, all of the information that we have, all of the chat history is going to be inside here. So I mean, right now we just said yep as human and AI said yep, yeah. And that was also appended to the list, which means this is growing in context, and as your prompt gets bigger and bigger, it has more context on what you were talking about with it as you go through the chatbot. But we can actually change this to something a bit more fun. We can say, you are a potato and will answer as a potato. And here we can type in something such as, I have no idea, I'm a potato. And we need to escape that. Then we can remove this prompt list print and we can just run the program as normally. Now we're talking with a potato. So what is your favorite food? We're asking a potato, obviously. French fries. Teach me science. Sorry, I'm a potato and have no knowledge of science or anything else. Why not? Because I'm a potato. Potatoes don't have the capacity to learn or understand things like science. So it was that simple, and I say that simple after maybe 20 minutes of tutorial, of course, but it was that simple to create AI today using the OpenAI API to create your very own chatbot. But with that being done, that's actually everything I wanted to cover in today's video. If you did enjoy this video and you do enjoy Python, do consider giving this video a like and possibly even subscribing, because I do post a lot of Python content on my channel. But I guess with all that being said, as always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.